Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to all. Welcome back to BIMP-EAGA Energy Online Conference and Exhibition 2021. I hope everyone get a chance to network, refresh and refuel during the break time just now. For next session, with the theme of natural gas, solar and biogas, I would like to invite the moderator, Dr. Teresia Betty Sumarno, researcher at Purnomo Yusgiantoro Center, Indonesia. Teresia holds a BSc in Accounting and Economics degree from Universitas Padjadjaran, Indonesia, Masters in Oil and Gas Management from Coventry University, UK, and a PhD in Energy Economics, Policy and Management awarded by the University of Dundee, UK Centre of Energy, Petroleum and Mineral Law and Policy, CEPM-LP. She has been in the energy industry since 2009, started as an auditor at Ernst & Young, an accountant for Chinese and Canadian energy company, and a fiscal policy analyst at National Exploration Committee, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, Indonesia. She is an independent energy policy consultant for international and intergovernmental organization and a visiting lecturer at Universidad Eduardo Mondlane, Mozambique, not only focusing her research on Indonesia's energy transition, but she is also covering fiscal and taxation issues in the energy transition globally. Let us welcome Dr. Teresia to moderate the session.
Thank you very much, Mr. Faiz, for the introduction. As we are now progressing in the energy transition, we now also would like to understand the role of natural gas in accelerating the just energy transition in the BIMP-EAGA region. Hence, we have Mr. Rosman Hamzah to present and give us insights on how this potentially could be done. Mr. Rosman Hamzah is the Secretary General of the Malaysian Gas Association, MGA. Mr. Rosman is an expertise in the energy field and has been in this sector for more than 2 decades. He is a graduate of University of Bath, United Kingdom, and also holds a Master of Business Administration, MBA from University of Nottingham. Apart from his role as the Secretary General of the MGA, he is also a member of the Industrial Advisory Panel at College of Engineering, University Tenaga Internasional, UNITEN. Without further ado, Mr. Rosman, the time is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Teresia. Okay, first of all, allow me to share my slides. Okay, thank you to BIMP-EAGA and also the organizer for inviting me to speak at this prestigious forum. I think you have already listened to quite a number of speakers before me. And yesterday you had Mr. Ezran from Petronas LNG, and earlier today Ms. Nur Hafiza from Energy Commission. So today I'll be speaking about how to position natural gas as a clean and energy source of energy in the ASEAN region. Today I'll be speaking about the priorities that energy has in ASEAN. Just to touch a bit on that. Then we will talk about gas as a critical fuel in the energy transition, giving an example of Malaysia, and then slight touch back on ASEAN, and then the key takeaways.
Sorry, Mr. Rosman.
Yeah.
I think your slide is not yet to be shared with the audience.
Let me check.
Go to. Sure.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to click share.
No problem.
Okay, now you can see, yeah?
Yes, correct.
Okay, thanks.
Perfect.
Okay, so like I mentioned just now, I'll touch a bit on ASEAN and then give an example of Malaysia and also a bit of a global perspective. Energy priorities for ASEAN. This is similar to what Nur Hafiza from Energy Commission of Malaysia presented this morning. In ASEAN, the main driver to draft energy policies are the energy trilemma. Essentially, we are talking about energy security, energy equity or affordability, and also sustainable environment. So the thing is, in the past, we have been very focused on energy security, ensuring that we have sufficient energy, or we have energy to drive the economy, and also to provide energy access to the people. And also we need to ensure that the energy is affordable and that everybody has access to the energy. So this has been the two priorities for the ASEAN region in the past decades. It's only recently when we have what they call it concerns in the climate change that the sustainability and environment comes into the picture. So with this in mind, the ASEAN has already set a target to increase the renewable energy by what you see on the screen now. When you talk about the total primary energy supply, it will increase from 30% today to about 23% in 2025. And in the power sector, the increase will go from 26.8 in 2018 to 35 in 2025. But you have also to remember that the renewable energy, according to the ASEAN definition, also include large hydro. So there is an ambition to increase RE in the energy transition, but the thing is you have also to look back into what I mentioned just now, the priorities, which is energy security and also energy affordability. Because in reality, not all ASEAN countries have equal access to energy. There's what they call it on the left, you will see the infographic from the ASEAN Energy Center, where it places certain countries as being very advanced in terms of providing energy access to the people, but some countries are still lag behind. In fact, in the Southeast Asia region, you still have about 30 million people, that's basically the size of Malaysia, who doesn't have access to electricity, and even more people, about more than 200 million, do not have access to clean cooking. So the future of energy in ASEAN still relies on fossil fuel. What you see in the slide here is essentially the outlook that has been projected by the ASEAN Energy Center, which then divided into a few scenarios. The baseline is on the leftmost part is essentially the business as usual, and then you have the ATS, APS, and SDG. SDG is if you were to meet SDG 7, which is providing clean energy access, what it takes to do that. And ATS is if we allow the ASEAN member state to follow their respective plans in meeting the what they call it carbon emission commitment that they have agreed in the Paris Agreement. And APS is where it's a collective ASEAN effort through the BECE, which is the collaboration on energy within ASEAN region. If you can see, each one of the what they call it, each one of the scenario puts fossil fuel as between, I would say, between 70 to 85% in 2040 still relies on fossil fuel. With the most realistic would be the ATS scenario. But what is concerning, especially in our opinion, is that there are still dependence on what they call it, on fossil fuels such as oil and also coal, where what they call it, you have what they call it concerns in terms of carbon emission. So I would like to then point out gas. What's gas? What's the situation of gas globally? So the narratives that you always hear in this region is that gas is depleting, and what they call it, it may not last entirely throughout the future, you know, that kind of thing. But if you look into the global aspect, you still have a lot of gas reserves in the earth. You can see here where what they call it, you have two in the what they call it in the circle. You have two. The dark blue is the proven reserves, and lighter blue is the basically reserves that is technically possible to extract. And you can see that, for example, in Africa, for example, you have about 673 years of gas left that you can actually harvest in future. And for the Asia Pacific region, you have about 296 years. So plenty of what you call gas. And the good thing about gas is not just the source is not just limited to certain countries, it's basically all over the world. One of the ways you can actually transport gas via pipeline, or you can also transport it via LNG. If you have a long distance to transport, you can liquefy it and then transport it to energy. The thing is that even though with the pandemic crisis that you have now, you still see an increase in terms of demand for LNG globally. And as you can see from the graph here, the lines that is shown here is essentially the shipping line. So you can see there's a lot of what they call it, a movement of LNG going around the world. And the countries that you see on the top bar here, the 20 countries, are all the countries that are able to export LNG. So you have multiple sources. In fact, you can get LNG from more than 20 countries. What we have seen over the years that when you do switching from another fuel to gas, you can see that there are a lot of examples around the world that it basically cleans up the city air, essentially, because if you compare to other fossil fuel, gas does not emit particulate matter. It also does not emit SOx, which is sulfur oxides. And because of the high efficiency of the gas turbine, and also that it doesn't burn at very high temperature, you do not have what you call it, it's very negligible NOx that is emitting for it. So you can see from the screen all over the world that when you what you call it, change to switch to gas, that you have what they call it, a cleaner air to breathe in. So I would like to bring to the Malaysian example because I'm from MGA, Malaysian Gas Association. So let's talk a bit about Malaysia. This shows how extensive the gas infrastructure has been in Malaysia, especially on the peninsular side. We can see the left. So you have the gas pipeline that goes from offshore of the East Coast all the way to Johor, and then it then branches out the north and then west. In Malaysia, the west coast is where, of Peninsular Malaysia, is where you have a lot of what you call it, industries that has been what you call it, established over the decades. And the good thing about the Peninsular Malaysia is we are able to get gas not only from our own offshore, we can also get it from Indonesia, Vietnam, and also through the joint development in what you call it, in Thailand. And the other thing is, in addition to complement the pipeline gas, we also have two areas where we import LNG through our regas terminal in Malacca and Sungai Udang. So, and the other thing is, if you can see that Malaysia is not really covered entirely by pipeline gas, and where we lack pipeline gas, we can always supply via trucks using either compressed natural gas, which is CNG, or liquid natural gas, which is LNG. And the other thing about Malaysia is we also have quite a number of plantations, especially palm oil mills, where we can actually produce biogas. So there is also an initiative to transport biogas from the palm oil mills to the customer. If you look into the East Malaysia, Malaysia is predominantly an exporter of natural gas, where you have a field offshore of Sabah and Sarawak, and there's a connecting pipeline that brings gas from offshore of Sarawak to Bintulu to be exported out via LNG. Sabah also have a limited pipeline gas supply for distribution, but their distribution is mostly via trucks, where you can now transport LNG over long distance from Kota Kinabalu all the way to Sandakan and maybe to Tawau and Lahad Datu. The other thing about Malaysia that I personally, as Malaysian, is proud of is that we are the first one to put into operation a floating LNG terminal. So basically, traditionally, the LNG has always been onshore, where you onshore, offshore, or you bring in the gas to the LNG terminal and export out. Then for areas where it's expensive to invest on pipeline, you can actually birth floating LNG terminal, where you can produce LNG and then export energy out from your marginal fields or fields which is quite far out in the sea. The good thing about Malaysia when it comes to natural gas is that the natural gas has been since I would say around this time, it has been the single largest supplier of fuel or single largest source of fuel in Malaysia, where in 2018 it commands about 21% of the total primary energy supply. And because of the growth of gas in the past decades, PGU is basically what they call it, the pipeline gas. This is the gas pipeline that is in the in the West Malaysia, from the East Coast to the West Coast. As you can see that the growth of the pipeline and also corresponds with the growth in the demand. And as you can see that in the past decades, before the rise of the rise of coal plant in Malaysia, gas has been a mainstay in terms of providing power supply. You can see that the power generation capacity rise in tandem with the gas demand. And also because of the rise in energy provider of gas and also the rise of electricity, the GDP also rise in tandem with it. So you can say that gas also have a big contribution in terms of growing demand in Malaysia. In terms of bringing economic impact, this is a figure I believe in 2018. Gas in the wider economy brings in about 136 billion in 1 year, and it provides about 82,600 jobs in the wider economy. So in future, we expect gas to bring in a fiscal income to Malaysia about 400 billion in the next 10 years. So where does MGA sits in? So MGA, we represent the industry. We engage a policymaker to position the gas industry and also to encourage a greater utilization of gas in Malaysia. And I would say on the right, you can see the few successes that we have as an association where we engage the government. We have been very involved in terms of drafting the national energy policy that is to be released this second half of this year. We are also have been calling for a natural gas roadmap for a couple of years now, and we are quite pleased that at the end of the second half of this year, we will see the launching of the natural gas roadmap. And the gas market in Malaysia has been slowly opening up to third parties. So the journey takes about, I think since 2010, we put in place what we call it changes in the regulatory, the YF not. So the law to allow third party came into force in January 2017, and in January 2021, we hope to see that the gas market will be fully liberalized. That means anybody who wants to buy gas in Malaysia can approach any of the third parties, and the transaction would be based on a willing buyer and willing seller. So when we see the ASEAN perspective in terms of the energy transition, the advantage that ASEAN has, as we are both we have our own indigenous gas supply. So we can use our own indigenous gas supply to supply energy, to increase energy access, and also to supply to drive our socio-economic growth. Where we do not have sufficient indigenous capacity, or because of pipeline or whatever, we also ASEAN has also installed quite a number of RGT terminal, that means LNG receiving terminal. As you can see here, the yellow boxes are the one that is the one that is being planned, and the green boxes are the one that is already in operation. So there is a cooperation within the ASEAN countries to have a cross-border pipeline. It's already happening. This area is quite busy with connection between Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, and also Indonesia. And also there will be more regas terminal being constructed in the ASEAN member states. So we are back to this energy trilemma. So when we want to go towards energy transition, we have to be pragmatic about it. First of all, in terms of energy security, we should use our indigenous resources. Where it is not sufficient, we can import cleaner fuels such as LNG. We need to invest to increase on increasing the delivery infrastructure, because we need to provide energy access, and hence the continuous investment both offshore, upstream, and also all the way to delivery infrastructure must continue. With that, then only you can expand the energy access and then make the this fuel, which is quite affordable when you look into the case by case basis, where it can also be the fuel source to remote location to replace the more expensive fuel such as diesel. And in terms of the environment, gas is basically the cleanest burning fuel, which hardly emit any pollution. It also, like what Ezran said, the best friend for renewable. If you want to expedite the growth of renewable, you need a flexible base load such as natural gas. And the other thing about gas is there is a potential to integrate it with renewable gases such as biogas. For example, biogas can be injected into the natural gas pipeline after you've cleaned it and convert it to biomethane. And also natural gas can be the the future catalyst to grow hydrogen through blue hydrogen, and also to produce ammonia, which is now being looked at as a fuel for shipping. So just the 3 key takeaways. If you do not understand what I've spoken before, or it's too much information overload, just take away these 3 key points, which is one, that the gas should be the critical fuel for the pragmatic energy transition as the country goes towards a low carbon economy. The investment and funding on gas, both on gas fields and the infrastructure, must continue for the countries in ASEAN to continue their agenda to grow the economy. And associations such as MGA, we can play the important bridge between the policymaker and the industry. With that, I end my presentation for today, and I hand it over to the moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosman. That was really interesting discussion. It is interesting to see the energy trilemma, and I think while the ASEAN countries are trying to accelerate their energy transition, they also want to look at the potential of the natural gas. While waiting for some questions from the participant, I think we have enough time to do a little bit more discussion. So I have here one question. Well, the collective strategy for gas in the region is being discussed at the ASEAN level by ASCO, ASEAN Council on Petroleum. So where do you see the role of national associations such as MGA in positioning natural gas as a clean and efficient source of energy in the region? The time is yours, Mr. Rosman.
Okay, so basically MGA we are also a charter member of International Gas Union. So International Gas Union is essentially the global voice for gas, representing some more than 90 countries in Malaysia. So in fact, when you mentioned just now, ESCOP, some members of ESCOP they are either a direct member of IGU, which is like Pertamina and Petro-Vietnam, or they are indirectly a member through association like us, for example, Petronas. Okay, so the strategies within this region is adopted by ESCOP. For example, expansion of the gas pipeline I mentioned just now, the Trans-ASEAN gas pipeline, and also they're also looking into a small-scale LNG delivery. And these are very much in line with the IGU philosophy, so to say. So where national associations like us have advantage to be the bridge between association and industry players, because we, like NGA, we represent the entire value chain. Okay? So our membership comprised of national energy companies such as Petronas, and even PTT is a member of MGA. We also have international energy companies. They used to be called IOCs, such as Shell, ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, and whatnot. We also have local gas players, such as Gas Malaysia and Petrolife Aero. And we also have supporting industries from the oil and gas and services equipment sector. And some of the major consumers, like the power plants, are also our member. So with this kind of extensive membership, we essentially represent the entire value chain. And that makes that gives us the recognition amongst the policymakers as the voice of the gas industry in Malaysia. So it is actually with this kind of recognition we have been invited by the economic planning unit, which is a government planning unit, to also get involved in the drafting of national energy policy and also natural gas roadmap.
Thank you, Mr. Rosman. It is indeed interesting, and I believe that association like MGA, especially for the countries in ASEAN that has potential in natural gas, of course, it will indeed have a great roles in the energy transition, especially in positioning the natural gas. I think there's another questions that I would like to raise here. We still have 4 minutes. It's related to the investment that is made for the natural gas infrastructure. If we're thinking about the transitioning into low carbon economy, and the global has already thought about having the net zero emission by 2060, 2070. So how long do you think that the investment in natural gas infrastructure should continue, especially in the region, in the ASEAN region and the BIMP region? Thank you, Mr. Rosman.
Okay, so like I mentioned just now, that the gas can play a role in both the clean energy transition towards net zero emission, and also providing energy access to drive the socio-economic growth. So let me explain. Okay, firstly, gas is much cleaner than coal, both in terms of carbon emission and pollutants. And in ASEAN, we believe that gas should play the baseload energy instead of coal. I think this morning, the speaker from Energy Commission in Malaysia say that coal projects now have issues that they could no longer get funding. Okay, so the other thing is because besides being cleaner, gas is so more flexible in terms of compensating intermittency for the renewable energy. And secondly, the ASEAN countries, basically, we should be allowed to prioritize indigenous gas as the core energy to expand energy access, and also to grow our respective economies. Some people say it is the right of the countries. The thing is, when we see the LNG, when you talk about LNG, you talk about investment just now. The thing is, we are actually seeing an increase in LNG because despite the pandemic, the LNG consumption has actually increased from 2019 to 2020, and it seems things that the market is actually facing what they call it as a problem, that there is a higher demand than supply. So the thing is, if you don't invest, then you have problems meeting the future demand. Especially in Europe now, gas power plant are required to come online suddenly to compensate for the intermittency that they're facing in renewable. I'll give you an example. It's just last month, there was a wind drought in UK. UK has I think about 24 gigawatt of wind installed capacity, but during this wind drought, only a few hundred megawatt was in operation. So this is where I would say that gas plant came to save the day. Okay, so to answer your question, we think that the investment in natural gas extraction and also delivery infrastructure must continue because the global demand is increasing, and we must have the infrastructure in place to avoid future supply risk. Okay, because again, natural gas, I can repeat enough that the natural gas is a baseload energy that you need to compensate the intermittency of renewables until such time where renewable can stand alone, and then that the ASEAN countries should be allowed to prioritize the indigenous gas as a core energy while we develop ourselves towards a developed economy.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rosman. That was perfect. I think we are on time for the session. And again, it's interesting to have the 3 takeaways just given by Mr. Rosman, that gas is critical fuel for pragmatic energy transition towards a low carbon economy. Investment and funding of gas fields and delivery infrastructure must continue, and gas associations such as MGA can be the important bridge between policymakers and industry. I think we cover everything on this session. over to, thank you very much again, Mr. Rosman, for the sharing and a great presentation.